So we may have a little bit of overlap, but that's cool, and but I'll take a little different perspective. So I'm going to work my presentation on the marine ecology of the Namibian coast. And that you spent some time at Blue Kelp today is going to be very useful because hopefully familiarized you with some of the terminology and some of the concepts about this ecosystem. So he used the word endemic, right? What's endemic meaning again? Yeah, so the more unique an environment, the more likely you're going to find endemic species. So if they're a generalist and they can live anywhere, you know, your environment's not all that special. I mean, it's not to say it's bad. It's just that this is a very unique world that you're occupying right now, both terrestrially and in terms of the marine ecosystem. So I'm going to spend a little time on the marine ecology of the Namibian coast. This is a famous arch in a forbidden zone. Sadly, it's not easily accessible. But this is Bogeyfels Arch we were able to see. But you can see this coastline is rugged. And the coastline is predominantly 61% sandy beaches, 39% rocky shores. It provides diverse habitats for species like African fur seals, dolphins, including the endemic heavy-side dolphin, and various shark species, which we rarely see, but unless they wash up. But they're here. So this, by the way, is a picture of a seal colony I took out in the forbidden zone, and there's tens of thousands of these fur seals that just hang out there, and they're so plentiful, and they almost don't have a survival instinct. The hyenas can just go up and select the baby, and you know they've got breakfast, and that's exactly what they do. So it's a very interesting coast that also it's an interface between the terrestrial environment and the ocean environment. So these the marine ecology here really ties into what's going on the land as well. So what makes this coastline so unique? What makes it so productive and so unique? This guy's thinking about it. But one of the major thing that is, almost, did I pass up the slide? I probably have it. Okay. No, I'm sorry, put that image after this. So one of the things that makes this thing, and I'm going to repeat it over and over, is the Benguela current. You heard of it today. How many people had heard of the Benguela current before you ever came here? Okay, that's cool. About 50%. And so what's really cool about the Benguela, it's important to understand a little bit about what drives currents in the first place. When I say current, what am I talking about? What makes a current a current? If I talk about a current, what makes it a current? Go. Okay, waves? Well, if I throw a rock in the water, I make waves. Is it a current? Direction? Did I hear the word direction?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Direction's one. And what else? Could be wind. So it's motion in a direction, one direction, and it's sustained. So if I throw a rock in the water, taking a word and splash, I move water around, but it's not a continuous motion, right? So currents are direct currents. They're direction oriented and they're continuous. And so this system that the Benguela works on two principles. One is there are two things really drive currents on this planet. One is water density. So anywhere you have a fluid and you have one fluid more dense than another, it's going to push something around and something's going to fill in behind it. And so we have this cold Benguela current that comes jetting right off the Antarctic. And so water in the Antarctic is heavier because it's colder and it's saltier. Cold water it freezes, and so as that water freezes, the salt concentration gets heavier, it gets saltier. And so that water just dives down. And so we have what is called a global conveyor belt that moves all around the planet. It takes a drop of water to circulate about 1,000 years around the planet. But it's driven by density differences, and then we have this wind band that moves the current northward. So what's really cool about South Africa is we have just the opposite going on here. We have a southbound current, and that's because of the global conveyor belt. And we have a northbound current. On top of that, we have this wind band. And so this is what drives the Benguela current. So what direction is that going? North, yeah. So we've got this cold current coming up here. If you just go around Cape Town, you can go snorkeling in coral reefs. But if here we don't have coral reefs. We have, what do we have instead? We have kelp forest, right? So a very, different, unique system. So one of the things that happens with the Benguela current is this. As the water's being pushed northward, the wind drives this current north. And water, because of its chemistry, have you guys done anything with water chemistry in any of your classes? So you know a little bit about the polarity of water. No? Okay. Well, what's cool about water is it's H2O, right? 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. I always do this because this is your hydrogens, this is your oxygen. It's 2 hydrogens are positive, 1 oxygen is a double negative. So it's a neutral molecule, however, it's got a positive side and a negative side, and so they form weak bonds with each other, these water molecules, and they adhere to each other. So when the wind blows, we've got deep welling currents, and then we've got water that's dragged from the surface. So the wind blows, it carries the surface water, and it pulls every bit of water below it. But here's what happens. If you have ever tried to, has anybody ever been pulled behind a car? And you don't go at the same speed as the car is going in front of you? Like maybe your wheels are smaller, or you don't go in a straight distance, you start to drift. So this is what happens as we go deeper, the Benguela current, the wind's jamming north, yanking all that water north, and it creates the water below it can't keep up, can't go as fast. And it's going, so what happens is it starts going out. And so now we create a vacuum. And so what we get is something called upwelling, because this colder, deeper water fills the space. And so we get this upwelling, and this is what makes this area so rich and the nutrients so high. It pulls that water up, and what's down at the bottom? What kind of nutrients might sink to the bottom? What kinds of things are down at the bottom that might get pulled up? Like dead things? Yeah, lots of minerals and lots of nutrients. Things die, they sink, they float. So we pull up nitrogen, we pull up phosphorus, we pull up all the things to the surface that make plants grow. And so one of the things is the upwelling, because we talked a little bit about phytoplankton today.
Yeah.
And so phytoplankton, I'm going to just jump to the image here. Phytoplankton is really amazing. These guys are photosynthetic. They're microscopic. You can't see them with your naked eye. Yet they photosynthesize, and they're plant-like. So all those nutrients that, if you give a plant nutrients in sunlight and the right temperature, what does it do? It grows like crazy, right? So we produce a tremendous amount of phytoplankton from the cold Benguela current. So that wind-driven upwelling brings up all these nutrients. It's like feet taking care of a plant by giving it all the kind of plant food you can give it. It's perfect conditions. So we have tremendous amount of phytoplankton here. And phytoplankton, am I going the wrong way here? Oops. There we go. Phytoplankton get eaten by zooplankton. And so just so you know, 52% of the oxygen on this planet doesn't come from the tropical rainforest, it comes from these guys. These guys are, and one of the other things she talked about a little side note today, was she talked about ocean acidification. Well, these phytoplankton, if you'll notice, they have like little outer shells. And they're very pH sensitive. So ocean acidification is a problem on a lot of levels, but it directly impacts the ability of these guys to form these little shells, which keep them right at the surface of the water, keeps them buoyant. And if they can't form those shells, they don't form on the surface, they don't photosynthesize. So there's so many problems with CO2, but that's just one of them. So these guys then are fed on by zooplankton, and obviously the zooplankton are fed on by small fish. So one of the things the Benguela Current does, it produces tons of small pelagic means open water surface fish. So these guys, you know, they're the tiny little silver fish you might see. And when you look around, you'll see them around here. You'll see places where the water looks like it's boiling in the middle of nowhere. What's doing that? These guys run in schools, and usually right behind them some dolphins or bigger fish, and you'll see all the birds following them. It's a whole circus following these guys around. But so we have a high productivity of these kinds of fish because we have a high productivity of the Benguela Current provides so many nutrients and so many phytoplankton and so many zooplankton. So that's the deal, right? So these in turn, these little fish, these little surface pelagic fish, well, they bring bigger fish and bigger fish. And so that's kind of the Benguela system. So in this slide, oops, come on. Here we go. So, so these fish in turn feed large organisms. So let's look at some of the guys that they feed. So this is this is the heavy-side dolphin. You'll see these guys here. They're very common in the bays. And you notice that characteristic white stripe. I don't know how they got the heavy side. Patrick, you know
it was
origin of that?
whoever first named them.
The surname.
The surname, yeah.
Okay. So it's not like they're like heavy, like, you know, they're actually small. But the heavy side dolphins, so that makes it a big, well, an ecosystem. So not just, you know, luterates, but into this ecosystem in the Benguela Current in South Africa. And they're the smallest of dolphins. One other guy that you might see here, I've seen him once here. You guys were doing the penguin boat. When are they doing that?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Perfect. You might see, when you get out, you might get into these dusky dolphins, and they are feeding in hundreds. It's like a sea of dolphins around you. And you'll see a cloud of birds that follow them. So, and they are all following all these little pelagic fish, the mackerel. Now, one thing I gotta say is, this is a problem because many of the fisheries that you saw today, these have been over-harvested. And the numbers of these small pelagic fish, the mackerel, sardines, anchovy, herring, are very low. In fact, that industry, is there anybody even producing those anymore here? I mean, I know that, is there anybody producing sardines?
I think that's the
Are they still, I mean, because I heard that they,
Oh, is it? So they're more bigger ones. So probably not that many.
yeah, it's been, unfortunately, it's been heavily fished out. But, so two of the feeders are these guys. Fur seals also, tremendous amount of pressure on these small pelagic fish. One of the big problems with catching these small pelagic fish is the bycatch. And so we have a overabundance of fur seals. And so because of overcatch, we don't have the shark population that we need to feed on these guys. And so there's a big imbalance right now. So if you head down the coast, you will see colonies of thousands, tens of thousands of these large fishes. Just landing, you can just about walk out and touch them. And they really don't have a very good, they're very vulnerable on the beach, but they're so overcrowded, they have no choice. The islands are too full, they gotta just come onto the beach. Good for hyena. Then these guys, so, we all love the penguins, but they're in danger. And they're in danger for a couple of reasons, but one of them is because of the overfishing of small pelagic fish. So these guys are tremendous swimmers. They waddle on land. They don't look like they're athletic, but you get them in the water, and they hunt in groups. They hunt in packs, like wolves. They know how to use one another. And I'm told by who are you going out with tomorrow? Do you know? Are they going to the Zohar? Okay, I hope Iko takes you out. He's an old guy that knows everything about everything here, and he understands the dynamics, the social dynamics of how penguins hunt. So he's really a cool guy. Ask him questions, but these guys, for instance, they don't let the juveniles. You have to earn your way into the feeding pack, because if you're young and inexperienced, you can mess up the whole strategy by which they're going to surround these small pelagic fish and make a big feed. So they're a very socially structured group, and again, because of the high productivity of the big walleye current, these guys exist here. This is a snapshot. One of the reasons why they are so low in numbers. You're going to be looking at this island tomorrow. This is Halifax Island. And this is what it looks like today. This is what it looked like in 1893. In 1893, and the surface is different. Notice it looks like these guys are on snow, right? Well, they're not on snow, they're on guano, which is penguin poop. And this was such a valuable commodity that there were wars fought over the gathering of the guano. And what do you think the guano was so good for? Yeah. Fertilizer, and but at the time in 1893, that's not what they were going for. Gunpowder, yeah, because they could make ammonia out of it. And so why would relieving the penguins of their guano be have such a negative impact? What in Spanish for what? Yeah. Go. I mean, wouldn't they be doing them a favor? Cleaning all that penguin poo? No? Well, one of the things that the penguins used that guano for was when they laid eggs. Look how stark it is. There's nowhere to hide eggs. So the guano was actually used to incubate the eggs. So when these guys came and cleared the islands of guano, they basically exposed the eggs, and gulls, other birds, could just predate their eggs. Their populations were decimated. They're endangered today. And so even though they're protected and there's no more guano, the fisheries are so low. Now that's the biggest problem. And again, it takes a while. So one of the things, when we come back to your question, to get your question, is humans, I guess, we're trying to, biologists here are trying to come up with systems that protect their eggs, because still the egg predation is still so high. Yes, sir.
Are the populations still decreasing, or are they stable, or are they starting to increase again?
I think there's, and Patrick, you probably know more than I do. I'm new here, so and I've learned what I've gathered just by being here. But the population is, incrementally increasing. But not, it's still a challenge. It won't take much, and then we have things like avian bird flu, and that's one of the big concerns is whether that will spread into the penguin populations. So these guys are facing a lot of challenges, but that gives you just a perspective. And so you saw somebody who was noticing, was it you? That was noticing those structures out on the island? Those are, and you'll see them when you're out on the peninsula. You'll see just old buildings where on the islands where they built structures and these guys lived to harvest guano. So it was, and some of the characters that were the guano harvesters were not like some of the nicest people in the world. And I'm not sure how well they appreciated the penguins being on the same island with them. So I'm sure there was some taking. One thing that we do have here, and with a little luck, you might see one of these guys tomorrow, humpbacks come in here and they feed off the zooplankton and some of those smaller pelagic fish. These are baleen whales. Does everybody know how a baleen whale feeds? They feed, we see some feed, they open up their mouth, yep, and it's like they got a grill, right? And they just push that, they got a tongue, a huge tongue, and just push the water and whatever in their mouth up against that grill, and they just lick off that grill. Whatever they happen to take a swallow of, they push with the tongue, they push the water out, take it off the grill. Pretty bad breath, but but they do take in a lot of these pelagic fish. And we had one just the other night, I was watching one feeding a humpy out here. Now, generally they pass through and they go south and feed in the even more productive waters. And one thing I should also mention, the Benguela Current is highly oxygenated. So not only is it high in nutrients, and cold water absorbs oxygen better, and moving water absorbs even more oxygen. So in other words, a fresh running stream is more highly oxygenated than a stagnant body of water that's not moving. And that's what fish do with their gills, is they agitate the water to get the oxygen out. And so that's, their source of oxygen. So that's another aspect of the Benguela Current. So we have highly oxygenated, nutrient-rich waters with tons of zooplankton and phytoplankton that feed these pelagic fish. And this brings whales, and so the humpies come through here, and I think their numbers, I've seen less of them as we get farther into spring. And then occasionally a southern right whale comes through here. I've never seen one, but they do come through periodically, so they're not residents. I have a quick video link here to the sharks of the Namibian coast, who also will feed. But because I'm moving, we have a lot to do here, so let me go through the rest of my little spiel here, and I'll run the 5-minute video link of the sharks of Namibia. And then the other component of the Benguela Current is the kelp forest, which we got a little taste of today. So the cold, nutrient-rich waters of the Benguela Current, they're just perfect for these large brown algae. They grow in dense aggregations known as kelp beds, all right, kelp forests. And now one thing, whoops, I'm not able to move this guy. There we go. This is nice perspective. This is, there's a reason they call it kelp forest. Okay, take a look at that. And just think now, what would this provide to marine organisms? What would be the benefit of chilling and hanging out and living your life in a kelp forest? Alberto, you got an idea there for me? What's the deal? What's so special about these kelp forests? Why, just looking at that, what does that provide? Provides habitat. And so this is, even if you don't live your life in the kelp forest, is a great place to hatch. It's a great place to lay your eggs. It's a great place to attach yourself. It's a rough current, right? So this gives it stability. It gives it great source of habitat for a lot of organisms, bigger fish that may not be open pelagic fish. And it, certainly for the crayfish or the rock lobsters, they use it. And you saw just all the diatoms and all the, remember the guy in the lab today that had jars and jars? Those are things he's taken off the kelp blue leaves, just an example. So these, this kelp forest is super productive. And so here's here's 4 advantages of the kelp forest. One is it's a biodiversity hotspot. Provides essential food and shelter to thousands of marine species, not just fish, but invertebrates, isopods. It's a vital nursery and hunting ground for many organisms. Carbon sequestration, so obviously these big leaves photosynthesize and grow rapidly. They're high users of carbon dioxide. They take it out of the atmosphere. So they're beautiful, wonderful carbon sinks. They also provide protection. Those big forests create a buffer on the waves, and it helps minimize coastal erosion. And the fact that they grow so fast. And they're very nutritious. So you saw what the product was and how they stimulate growth in plants, but they're also very nutritious to eat. And if you, how many people have tried kelp, have eaten kelp? And look at these 2 guys. Look at these 2 specials. Stand up. Look at these 2 kelp eaters, man. These guys are great. I want to look like these guys. They're eating kelp. So, okay, there's a good reason to eat kelp right there. No, it is highly nutritious, and because it has so many nutrients in it. And I'm not going to pull this up, I promise, but there's a great website, Patrick. I recommend you check it out. 1001 sea forest species. If you want that link, I just put it on there. There was like too much. It was too dense as I was going through this the other night. I'll be here for 3 days going through this, but it's just the 1001 species that live in the kelp forest. So sometimes they're worms, sometimes they're big, they're sharks. So it's a wide range. So a couple of things while we're out on the beach. Now, kelp blue, you saw those leaves if you guys went into the processing plant. How many people, I was trying to show people those leaves. They're beautiful, big leaves. And they're grown just for that. They're a crop. And so this is what you find in nature here. So there's really 2 kinds you can see. And so when you're walking around on the beach, you'll see some of these floating around. Some of you guys swam around them today. Some of them probably hadn't got out. We had to pull one out of the outboard that was wrapped around. So this is the major one that we have here. It's called sea bamboo. It grows as anywhere from 50 centimeters to 15 meters, so it's a big one. These towering kelp beds obviously do everything we just talked about, the shelter, invertebrates, and these guys can really protect the coastline from big washouts. And they also, when they wash up, they produce habitat on the shore. So a lot of things hatch. They produce, their shelter for invertebrates of all kinds. Sometimes there are small insects that feed a lot of birds, and it's no coincidence you'll see 1 million shorebirds feeding along beach lines, coastlines where there's kelp washed up, because there's just so much to eat there. And then, so when you're looking at it, what I want you to do is see if you can recognize the sea bamboo when you're out on the beach. From this one is this is called a split fan kelp, and it's a very interesting relationship. These don't grow as tall, but what they do is look at those blades. And one of the things that they do is the blades actually work by knocking urchins off the stems of the taller bamboo. And the urchins are the major predator of kelp. So those little sea urchins, spiny, they have mouths underneath and they like to eat kelp leaves. they'll decimate the kelp unless there's something to eat them. So these guys, these two kelp species actually work symbiotically. So the kelp blue is neither one of those is a native kelp, but it does you know it's not like an invasive species that's going to take over. You know, it's a controlled area, and it certainly serves a big purpose that like these guys do. Other things that chill here or pass by sometimes. This one I didn't know that leatherback turtles do show up here. 5 of the world's 8 species of sea turtle occur in the Namibian waters, usually a passerby. They're usually en route. And this is just this is the marathon journey of one loggerhead turtle. I mean, you know, that's quite a challenge across the Pacific. But and so they track this one guy. And these guys like to feed on jellyfish. So there's plenty of those in these waters. So we already talked about I threw some birds on here. One thing I want you to pay attention to is we've got 2 gulls. So this is the kelp gull, which you already knew. But what's the difference between a hard lobs? What would be the identifying characteristic when you're on the beach tomorrow between a hard lobs and a kelp piscis? Good. Yeah. So you can see, you can see the red legs. You can see, you know, these guys are also bigger, physically bigger. But these guys are one of the biggest predators on the penguins. So, whoops, wrong way. And I threw this guy on there. This guy is an endangered cormorant. We have lots of cormorants. But keep your eye on the Cape cormorant. You notice the orange spot right here. If you spot one tomorrow, you're out on the beach anytime. It's worth noting. This is the lesser flamingo, and what you've got, you can see the schnozzle was all dark, and they're great flyers. I took an aerial shot of this guy, said they really can't. You know, you would think they would be really awkward flyers. So now you guys see flamingos up north, or no? I mean, maybe some freshwater. So you'll see a lot of flamingos, and right now they're pretty white. I mean, I don't see many pink ones. Yeah. But you'll see them, and they are chilling like villains with the penguins. This is like the only place in the world that I can think where you're going to find penguins and flamingos hanging out together. Seriously, when you take your boat ride tomorrow, you will see at Halifax Island, you're going to see penguins and flamingos together. I mean, it's such a, you know, I've always associated penguins with polar ice and flamingos with tropical warm. And here they are together. So, because of the big Willamette Current, if you've got penguins in a temperate zone like this, almost a tropical zone. So that's just another aspect of the big Willamette. And then, of course, the star of the show that everybody loves around here, that you hear anything, anywhere you go, you say, I teach marine science. Well, have you tried the crayfish? You know, that's everyone. So that's the big star of the show, and Lutherans, everybody loves the crayfish, which I unfortunately am allergic to.
You're missing out.
It's a crustacean, and I can't eat because of the freaking proteins that make that exoskeleton. I turn into I look like your shirt. So I can't eat them. So have one on me. But their numbers, again, these have been way overfished. And that's another advantage of the kelp blue is that, that's one of the research areas we're looking at is they're liking that kelp blue habitat. So we need to restock these things if we're going to have the Lutherans Crayfish Festival. All right, so I yammered on a bit. Any questions for me on anything here? Would you like to see the 5-minute video on the Namibian sharks? Or will we
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
naman.
Okay, what am I doing wrong?
You have to,
Do I need to do the?
you have to use the button.
Maybe it's just I watched it last night. I just thought it's rather than trying to get pictures of all these.
Would you like to show us the different of the ocean?
You should go help me.
Silo, I think Mr. Different parts of the ocean. Ocean.
Okay, all right, just 5-minute video. I liked it. You might like it. And I don't know about I don't really know about the sharks here. I know we have great whites, and we need more. They've been pretty decimated. All right, let me rerun this really quickly and.
This is the Atlantic Ocean, on Namibia's coastline, which is over 1,500 kilometers long. You can look out over the chilly waters and watch cormorants, surfers, pelicans, African fur seals, dolphins, and sometimes whales. It's clear, even from land, that our ocean is home to many different species. But there are so many more species that we can never see from land. Animals that spend their whole lives underwater and that play important roles in keeping the ocean healthy. Animals like sharks. Sharks are just one group within a bigger group of animals that scientists call chondrichthyms, or sharks and their relatives. Most of the fish, like hake, kingfish, halibut, and cod, that Namibians know and eat, have skeletons made of bone. But chondrichthyms, or sharks and their relatives, have skeletons made of flexible cartilage, the same stuff that gives your nose or your ears their shape and structure. That's why chondrichthyms are known as cartilaginous fishes. There are a few different types of chondrichthyms. First, they are the sharks. We all know what they look like, but they are sharks of very different shapes and sizes in Namibian waters. They range from the very huge to the very small. Basking sharks, which are the second biggest fish in the sea, can reach up to 12 meters in length. But don't worry, basking sharks are gentle giants. They have tiny teeth and feed by filtering plankton, microscopic fish larvae from the water. The great white shark, one of the ocean's most well-known predators, also lives off Namibia's coast. It can reach up to 7 meters in length, although most of them are smaller. So imagine 2 or 3 adults lying end to end. That's the length of a fully grown great white shark. At the other end of the spectrum are the little sharks that live close to shore in Namibia's kelp forests. The Darkshire shark is one of the smallest and gets its name from the fact that when it feels threatened, it curls up and hides its face behind its tail, as if it was shy. Shy sharks are really beautiful and only reach about 60 centimeters in length. They are also found only along the west coast of South Africa and the coast of Namibia. They don't live anywhere else in the world.
What's that mean? Thank you.
Aside from sharks, there are 2 other groups of animals in the group scientists call chondrichthyms. Skates and rays are very closely related to sharks, but they have flattened bodies that are round or diamond-shaped, whereas most sharks have torpedo-shaped bodies. Lots of different skates and rays live in Namibia's seas, including blue rays, spear skates, and the species which lives in our coastal waters, the common eagle ray. Guitarfish, which some Namibians call sand sharks, are very common in shallow coastal areas. The Kwarning, or Tokna people, are Namibia's coastal tribe, and they used to hunt guitarfish with spears. Tokna name for guitarfish is barbet. One of the ways in which skates are different to rays is that rays give birth to live young, whereas skates produce egg cases, also known as mermaid
You're gonna see a
crescents,
lot of
which
these
they
on the
attach to the
beach.
seabed. The little ones develop within these egg cases and then hatch back into the ocean. You might have seen these egg cases washed up on the beach where they are well disguised amongst the seaweed. Different sized and shaped egg cases come from different species of skate, and some small sharks, like shy sharks, also produce egg cases. The last group of fishes that are also chondrichthyans are the weird but wonderful chimeras, also called ghost sharks. Many people have never heard of them because they mostly live in the deep parts of the ocean. However, in Namibia, anglers often catch one type of chimera close to shore. It's called the St. Joseph shark, or elephant fish. You can see why it's called an elephant fish. It has a long snout that looks a bit like the trunk of an elephant. There are 87 different types of sharks, skates, rays, and chimeras living off the oceans of Namibia, and there may be many more that we do not know about yet. Sharks have been given a bad reputation by humans over the years. Some people are afraid to get in the sea because they are scared of sharks. But in truth, many more sharks are killed every year by people than people killed by sharks. And because many shark species reproduce very slowly and don't produce lots of babies, many species have become endangered. Because of overfishing, certain species of shark and ray have disappeared completely in some countries. There are many reasons why we need sharks, skates, rays, and chimeras in Namibian seas. Apex predators help maintain the balance in ecosystems by regulating the populations of their prey and help to maintain biodiversity. Biodiversity is the word used to describe all the many different forms of life in a place. When we talk about biodiversity in the ocean, we mean the huge number of different plants and animals, everything from seaweed and kelp to starfish, mussels, jellyfish, crabs and crayfish, edible fish, dolphins, seals, sharks, and much, much more. A biodiverse ocean is a healthy and strong one, and we rely on a healthy ocean in many ways.
The healthy ocean provides good fish for us Namibians to eat and to sell. It also provides jobs and incomes for us Namibians.
A healthy ocean and coast are also places we can use to relax, have fun, and spend time with friends and family.
Without a healthy environment and ocean, there is no tourism industry. We have nothing to show our tourists, and we most certainly don't have happy animals to show our tourists either.
Tourism is one of the biggest industries we have here in Namibia, and it employs thousands of people. Having a healthy ocean is crucial for the survival of our industry.
Phytoplankton are tiny plant-like microorganisms. They produce massive amounts of oxygen in the ocean and about half of all the oxygen in the atmosphere. When it comes to life in the ocean, it begins with phytoplankton. As primary producers, they produce food for shellfish such as oysters, mussels, abalones, and also zooplankton, tiny animal-like microorganisms. Zooplanktons are consumed by fish larvae, baby fish, and they grow to be consumed by bigger fish such as sharks, by birds, and also by human beings. If you remove phytoplankton from the ocean, eventually the ocean will collapse. It is therefore imperative to take care of our ocean, to maintain its health and its biodiversity for our generation and many more generations to come.
We need healthy seas to ensure a continued supply of oxygen. So even if you live far inland, it is clear to see that our lives are linked to the ocean. Sharks and their relatives are an important part of the healthy ocean. And if we want all the benefits that a healthy ocean provides us with, such as jobs, fish to eat, and air to breathe, then we need to look after our sharks, skates, rays, and chimeras. There are many ways to ensure that our oceans stay healthy and that the sharks and their relatives in Namibia's waters don't disappear. Some types of fishing catch a lot of sharks, skates, and rays accidentally. Namibia needs responsible fisheries that don't overfish sharks and rays. Some human activities modify the coastline and by doing so may damage or even destroy habitats where sharks and other marine animals live. Activities like seabed mining for things like phosphate pose a threat to marine habitats and marine life, including sharks and their relatives. We should protect our oceans and coastlines from destructive projects. Plastic from our lives inland often ends up in the ocean. We may not see it so often in Namibia, but ocean currents carry in discarded fishing gear and plastic from other coastlines. Many marine animals accidentally eat this plastic, filling up their stomachs and causing them to starve.
Every year, we have to do thousands of rescues to catch seals contained in fishing line, rope, and packaging straps. And it is extremely important that we help those seals.
We should all try to use less plastic and always ensure that your rubbish goes into a bin with a lid, so the wind can't blow it into the sea. And if you can't avoid using plastic, make sure it goes into a recycling bin when you're finished with it. If you like to go fishing and you catch a shark, skate, ray, or chimera, be sure to handle it with care. Never pull these animals by their tails. You can injure them that way. For small sharks and skates and rays, try to remove the hook quickly and then carefully return the animal to the water. For larger animals, get help if you can. One person to hold the shark and the other to try to remove the hook. Keep the animal in the water if possible. They need to have their gills in water to be able to breathe. If you can't get the hook out after 1 minute, cut your line as close as possible to the hook and release the animal carefully into the ocean. Sharks and their relatives aren't so scary. What's scary is the thought of an ocean without any sharks. So let's come together as Namibians to learn more about our sharks, skates, rays, and chimeras, and to protect them. The health of our oceans and our own health and well-being depends upon it.